That's great that your cash flow plan looks great, that your expenditures look fine, that you're making money at the end of the day. But if you do not deal with what really you've gone through in life, it will catch up with you.
You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world. My guest today is Tracy Ftacek. She is the founder, owner of the Pretty Convenient Salon, one of Chicago's preeminent hair and makeup studios. She's a Paul Mitchell National Educator, and she's traveled all around the world teaching innovative hair and makeup workshops and sharing her best practices for salon ownership. She's also the founder of the Pretty Convenient app, an on-demand beauty app where her all-female team of some of the industry's top professionals deliver a convenient and stunning beauty experience to your home. But Tracy wasn't always a superstar business owner. And we're going to talk to her today about her resiliency and how she went from living in a trailer park to the successful entrepreneur she is today. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Tracy, what does woman of value mean to you?
Oh, great question right off the bat, too, huh? I love it. I think that it's somebody that when they walk out of the room, they left it better than when they walked in, that recognizes the strengths in others and helps them find the belief in themselves and believing in others until they really do see that belief in themselves at the end of the day.
That sounds beautiful. So helping people believe in themselves and leaving the room better than when you came in. I say the same thing in dating. It's like when I have a client who's going on a date and they're like dreading it, or the guy doesn't look like his photos or whatever. And it's just, if you can go in with that attitude of leaving the person better than when you found them, it's just such a good way to approach anything in life. So I love that.
I love it.
So Tracy, you are this successful entrepreneur who is doing all this great stuff, but you weren't always that way. Can you tell us that aha moment when you really learned who you were as a woman of value?
It's an interesting question as well, because I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and was raised by a single mom who, at the time, I watched the struggles that she went through. And in many cases, we were financially broke, but we never had the mindset of poor. My mother always believed in me, and I had amazing family and friends that surrounded me that believed in me. But because of coming from that financially lesser than background, it was a real struggle. A lot of that, the buzzword now is the imposter syndrome, crept in a lot of different ways. And I would have to say my career over the last 30 years in the beauty industry, every 5 or 6 years, due to transfer of companies, we would move to a different state. And I would have to start back over again without a clientele, without a business, without a circle of family and friends. And that's when I realized that you do not have to come from something to affect the world in a positive way. And if I could do this over and over again, it meant that I do have value and that I'm leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for the people behind me to find that value in themselves.
So let's explore a little further. Anchorage, wow. Was there a lot of alcoholism? And I mean, that's my picture of Alaska, is a lot of people who drink and who are depressed. And I mean, there's a lot of issues in Alaska in general. Is that something you experienced as well?
So it's interesting. Yes, Alaska, sadly, is known for a lot of alcoholism, drug addiction, as well as sexual abuse. But I was very fortunate in the family that I grew up with that I was not directly exposed to that, but I saw many people around me. But it's also a wonderful place to grow up. And the individuals in Alaska, what I found, and even through my family, is I had, other than my mother, I came from a family of entrepreneurs. Everybody was always wanting to start a business and grow on their own. And very independent minded. So they worked really hard, but they also played really hard on the weekends. Our playing hard wasn't the drug and the alcohol use. Our playing hard was fishing and hiking and camping and skiing and snowmobiling. This is where I say I had a really great group of friends and family that truly protected me from a lot of these other things in the world that you could have been exposed to.
That sounds really wholesome. um, yeah, so having support and having entrepreneurs to look up to, which is unusual. You know, I did not come from entrepreneurship, although my father was always looking for the next best thing. He had a steady job, but then he always had these side businesses, like he would sell jewelry, and then he would, he had like these little trunks that he would carry around, and belts, and it was always some little not going anywhere business. There was no structure as to, you work really hard and you build a business and this is what you do when things don't go well. And so to be able to have that is really special. But tell me more about you kind of went into every 5 years or so you would move. Why were you moving every 5 or 6 years once you established a business? Were you still living with your family? Like, what was going on there?
No. So my husband works for a large corporation. And so we were transferring to grow his career. And the beauty of the beauty industry is I was my biggest asset. And that is also something that I realized, is that I had the ability to connect with individuals in a very hairdressers and their clients have a very personal relationship with one another. We tend to be one of the first people that is part of so many special occasions in people's lives, as well as sad moments. So when we would transfer or move to a new state for his promotion or next career step, I would start back up all over again in creating a business and starting a clientele. And that's really when I realized that I looked at hairdressing as not just as a creative avenue, but also because of watching family members of mine start and stop and restart and rebuild businesses over and over again. There was a little piece in there that I had learned from that as well, that I saw processes and that they were repeatable processes. So by taking my ability to connect with other human beings and have that empathy for whatever situation they're sharing, the creative aspect of understanding how to help and make people feel beautiful, and then this entrepreneurial piece of looking at systems and as ways of achieving success. By taking those three pieces together, I was able to recreate some really great opportunities in business.
So yeah, because beauty is the hair salons are, you get very attached to your beautician, to the person who cuts your hair. And we had a situation when my daughter got married, and this was 2000 and I would say like 10 years ago. She got married in December, like I think right after Christmas. So it was vacation time for everybody. We ended up having this snowstorm that was the biggest snowstorm in the decade. And it was going to snow on the day of her wedding, and the wedding was in Brooklyn, New York, and we were in Connecticut. So as it was, everybody pretty much was going to have to travel to the wedding. And I had my beautician, the person who was going to do hair, makeup, everything was set. We had to change everything. The night before, we made a split-second decision. We were going to get a hotel and stay nearby so that we'd be at the wedding. And my hairdresser, first of all, working with somebody you don't know, and it's a big occasion, and she did not do a great job, but it was okay. The most important thing that happened out of that whole thing was that the person who ran the salon that I was in stopped letting me make appointments. She got angry at me for canceling, even though I was going to put my life at risk if I had stayed in my house and driven to the wedding, the day of the wedding. And it really upset me so much in the beginning, like how, and she didn't even say anything to me. She just kept saying, the hairdresser's not available. I mean, it was just really very just unkind and unethical to do that without telling me anything, like without even expressing, I would like to get paid because you reserve the time, like anything. She said nothing. And eventually I found somebody new to cut my hair. And I did use this hairdresser at her home for a while, but it was just like really unkind. And, you realize, first of all, people are replaceable. If you're going to treat me like that, I don't want to be treated like that. But you do get attached to people who do a great job. And, and you do open up and they know your life story. I mean, it is a very intimate relationship. And so I can't imagine you picking up and moving and starting again. And also all the people you left behind and how they felt. So that, you made it sound so like, yeah, and then I just did it. So it must have taken a big toll on you.
It was, it is interesting. Even to this day, I'll go back home because my family still lives in Alaska, and we moved away in 2000, the first quarter of 2000. And I will once in a while see somebody that recognizes me that was one of my former clients in a grocery store, and their face does light up. And, oh, you're back in town. Oh, just to visit my family. I'm not here to do hair type of a thing. And even my last transition 8 years ago from living in Minnesota to now where I live in Illinois, I actually traveled back every 5 weeks to work on my clients in Minnesota, simply because they did not want to see me go. And I had this concept or idea I wanted to build in Illinois, and I wanted to do it debt free. So they agreed to see me every 5 weeks. I agreed to make the trek back and forth to visit them. And you really do have to respect your customers. I couldn't call out sick because it was an every 5 week, and they were scheduled out for an entire year. Basically, I did this. And I'm so incredibly grateful for those clients. And just coming from, they've helped me build my business. Yes, I might have worked in a salon and the owner wrote the check, but the client sitting in the chair is actually the person that's truly writing that check, right? So there is a level of respect that has to be given there. And when it was time for me to end my time traveling back and forth from Minnesota and launch and build a brand new company here in Illinois, I had an assistant that worked beside me. And so it was incredibly important for me to do a professional pass off of these clients to this assistant, because I wanted to ensure that these people were taken care of, because they took care of me. They committed to also showing up for this appointment every 5 weeks. And it was where can anybody, that's for no contract, because we know that in business contracts, that's how you get things done. There was no commitment other than a verbal commitment that, yes, we'll see you, and me saying I'll come back. And it was a really special time. And every 5 weeks we would catch up, and I would work really hard for 3 days, and I would see 30 of these clients. And I had an amazing assistant that worked alongside me, and it truly was an amazing experience. But that's when I knew that it wasn't, I always say, and it's not about the service that you really are providing. The service is what gets somebody in the beginning, but it's the how you work with somebody, the trust and respect that's built during that experience. And that honestly is not something everybody can do. But if they understand how to respect the relationship they're in, whether it's a personal or a business, it is repeatable, and those things can be applied in a business world as an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, so important. Trust and respect. there's so many people who provide a service and don't build trust. And it's just, for me, it's not going to work. Like if somebody promises something and doesn't follow through. I had an experience recently where a virtual assistant service reached out to me and said, we'll do a project for you for free for 4 hours to show you that, to try to prove our worth. And I said, great, let's try it. I would do that anyway. I would have somebody start small on something, and they couldn't finish it. They promised me deadlines that they didn't meet. Then they apologized and said, but I don't work on weekends. I said, but here in this email, you told me you were going to work on it all weekend. I would never ask you to, but don't tell me something you're not going to do. And there were so many red flags like this. And then the guy worked for like 9 hours and still didn't finish. And I said, fine, don't continue. I'm going to hire somebody else.
Absolutely.
I hired somebody else. Wait, the story's not over.
No, it's like
it got worse. So I hired my web guy, who's amazing, and he finished the whole thing within probably an hour. And then the guy went back to fix it after it was fixed. I told the company, stop the work. I told him, stop the work. And over the weekend, he went in and broke it. And I had to rehire my guy. And I was so livid at this company who was trying to help me, but like, no, that's not helpful. So there is no respect. There is zero respect. And in fact, I would love to write a terrible review for them because I don't want anybody else to go through this. It cost me a lot of money to fix the problem that they were doing for free. And so, people overpromise, underdeliver, don't build your trust. They don't get your work.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, and that's what happened with your hair appointment for the wedding, is that there was a level of trust broken in that relationship. And that's, I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't had clients unhappy with me, that we haven't had customers, that I haven't had relationships that didn't work out. That would be a huge fallacy because we're all imperfect human beings. But at the end of the day, it's somehow there's either a lack of respect, or respect is broken. There's a lack of trust, or the trust has been broken that was there. And I had a business partner, and we talked about, what's important to us as we build this business together. And she said respect, and I said trust. And I was like, oh, well, that makes a great marriage, because then I'm in charge of ensuring that the team trusts us, and she's in charge of making sure the team respects us. But it's a relationship and that you're having with these people, with these customers and clients, and maybe there's a reason why they're reaching out to you and giving you 4 free hours of work, because they're not reaching out to the customers that they don't have customers that truly respect and trust them.
Who knows? I mean, I think that the problem is, like, if there are always going to be people who are not a good fit. There's a big difference between not a good fit and I did a terrible job and messed you up, on purpose, or just like without apologizing or whatever. And I think, as an entrepreneur, I didn't know my ideal client in the beginning. I didn't have boundaries in the beginning. I didn't have clear contracts in the beginning. And all of these things are things you develop as you learn who you are as a business owner, and what you need, and what you need to also create and co-create with the people who were with you. So having a business partner, for example, that is not an easy thing. You've got to have systems in place to make sure that relationship is trustworthy, and you've got to have clarity and focus, and right. So how did you learn how to do those things?
Trial and error. Very much. I am innately a trusting person. I tend to operate from the I trust you until you prove it to me that I can't trust you. And so that was really, that's really how I did it. Trial and error. And I made so many mistakes because I wasn't watching my own back in the process, and just excused things away that I should have handled and taken care of right away and nipped it in the bud. I find that one of the number one things is relentless communication. That if you are consistently, and I'll even go back to my business partner, we are extremely good friends, and we're not business partners any longer. We didn't know each other from a hole in the wall before we became business partners. And so, but what we knew at the beginning is we had gone through all these trial and errors of mistakes and not communicating how we really felt and our true intentions in this partnership in the past. And so we actually sat down, and as simple as to who's really going to be in charge of buying the staples for the stapler, to who is going to go ahead and make sure every night the salon is swept up and cleaned and ready to go. And because we did that, anytime we disagreed on anything, there was the mutual respect and the mutual trust. And then I don't agree with that. I don't have an explanation as to how we can get around it right now. So we would let each other kind of separate and then get back together. And when she moved away, and that's how I ended up buying her out, and the partnership dissolved there. And I retained the salon and business. And to this day, this was 6 years ago, and we've still been friends ever since. And she's one of my biggest confidants, and as well as I am for her. And we bounce a lot of things off of each other. And it's just, it never would have came if we probably hadn't been so clear. The friendship piece wouldn't have come if we hadn't been so clear in the very beginning with each other about our expectations for the relationship we were getting in together.
I love that. It's so much of this is about transparency, honesty, clarity, communication, and people don't do it. It's like what I was saying about this virtual assistant. Don't tell me you're going to do something and then not do it. Don't have the head of the company not communicate with the person you're sending out, because that doesn't make me trust you either. That makes me not trust you. And back to my salon experience as well. It's like, don't hide the truth from me and make up these BS excuses as to why she wasn't going to cut my hair. I know she was available. If I called you 6 times and each time you say she's not available and don't give me an availability at some other point, I'm not stupid.
Well, and it's interesting. Just even the beauty industry mind is running as you're telling me this story, like 2 things. Number one, unfortunately, we have a lot of beauty business owners that are amazing at their profession behind the chair or in the treatment room, but they have not gone through the process of how to be a successful business owner, and those process, which is customer relations and customer service. And then the other part of me is like, I'm wondering that if that hairdresser was no longer with the company, and sometimes that is an excuse they'll utilize when the hairdresser is no longer with, they'll just lie and tell you that they're not available, hope to get you into somebody else and hook you to get you to stay with their salon and their environment, which is, both of those are horrible things to do, because again, you're breaking the trust that you have with that customer.
Yeah, no, I knew she was still there. It was actually a very small salon. It was just her. She ran the salon in her home, and it was just this one person who cut hair, and then she did makeup and and tried to sell products and stuff. Yeah, it was. I'm so happy to be away from this person, but it was just a horrible feeling of like, here's this hairdresser who did my hair so well, and I trusted her, and I was devastated not to be able to use her. I mean, the one thing, your daughter's wedding, you've got to look great. You're going to be in pictures, and you're trusting a total stranger who doesn't know you. I mean, it was hard, and there was no empathy at all. It was just, there's something bad about you because you didn't use me in a snowstorm. I mean, it just made no sense. It wasn't kind. But enough about her. That was a long time ago. So just to go back to the trailer park part of this conversation. So when were you in a trailer park?
as a child growing up.
Childhood, yeah.
We were in and out. It was part
Mm.
of it's interesting because I learned so much about how to advocate for myself based upon watching the situations my mother was in as a single parent raising two kids. And because it was 70s and 80s. So it was at a time when women were just really coming into the workforce of being able to ask for themselves. But I remember even as a child, my mother couldn't afford to even purchase a home for us. And something was triggered when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away this last year about how she was actually one of the individuals that fought for women to have the ability to actually sign the lease and buy their own home without a man on the deed. And looking back at my childhood, I haven't had a conversation with my mom, but I would imagine that probably played a little bit into why we were so transient of moving around so many different times. And my mother did an amazing job raising us, but that was the gap, was financially we always had less than a lot of my friends and the kids that I went to school with. So what I realized at that point in time is I did not want to, number one, rely on a man to take care of me. And I wanted to ensure that I was going to be able to take care of myself. And it wasn't about the house I lived in, because I had such great, happy memories growing up. It's more about I become attached to people now than I actually become attached to things. But I also have some really great things in my life because I've done well financially. So it's kind of, I've been able to bring forward those pieces. And now I actually teach that to other individuals in my business consulting, as well as a mentor and a coach for my team through my businesses. But yeah, it was interesting because there was a lot of those things that you were talking about that were going on around me, but I just was very protected and not overly exposed to them. And I'm so grateful for my family for doing that, because it could have gone down a different path for sure.
Wow. No, that sounds really amazing. And I read Ruth Bader Ginsburg's book about the autobiography. And I remember reading about the many things she did that we take for granted today. I mean, I own my house now after my divorce. I could never have done that. And so many things that I have fought for that men have told me I was crazy, hysterical, put me down. It's one of the reasons I specialize in communication skill building and boundary setting, is because for most of our lives, we have not had a voice and we have not been able to be heard. And we all deserve to be heard, for sure.
Absolutely. No, it's, even though I'm in the beauty industry, and you would think the beauty industry, 80%, if not a little bit more, of the industry workforce is female, but men still hold about 80% of the leadership positions. And so it's very unbalanced. And even with today's day and age, I've gone up against male figures that helped bring the men forward. And when I talk to other females that are leading the way, why is that? Why did I start at a lower than he started? Or why is he getting paid more for this event or show? Or even as a hairdresser, why is he able to charge so much? And it's simply because the men have always just done it. Women have to be somewhat taught how to have those conversations. And so even with my daughter's 19 and she's interviewing for summer jobs while she's home from college. And I'm like, no, you have to negotiate. And she's like, Mom, it's a hostess position at a restaurant. And I said, but you still have to negotiate. And if you want to take what they offer, that's great. But also just let them know that, they're saying to you $15 an hour, say $15.50. What's it going to hurt?
I love it.
It's a hostess position. It's not your career.
Yeah, but it's great. It's a great lesson in life that we should always be reaching higher. and reaching into being valued for who we are, which is the whole purpose of this podcast, is
Yes.
that we're all women of value. And, I teach my son the same skills. It's important for all of them to be valued for the work they do, for who they are as people. Yeah, so let's go into, you mentioned mentoring and coaching for your businesses. So you did this one-on-one work for a long time and you transitioned. So tell us about this transition and what you're doing now.
So many things. I love to have a full day, but not overwork. I have learned to have to be very comfortable with an unbalanced work-life balance. But I started in the beauty industry with salons, but then about 6 years ago, I had a company-wide walkout. And I was on this path of becoming very successful in the salon industry as a salon owner. But when I had this company-wide walkout, it really caused me to pause and think of, am I doing what I think the industry wants, or am I doing what I truly want in this industry? And so that's when I took my business, rebuilt it to a reasonable business, sold it, and launched the Pretty Convenient app for on-location hairstyling and makeup. And it's the same process. We work with female executives, prepping them for galas and events and speaking engagements, for dinner dates, as well as the weddings, right? The event industry. And what I was able to do was I looked at my career path and I'm like, okay, I work behind the chair. I'm a salon owner. I educate for a major product brand, and I do consulting. I love doing all of those things. There's got to be more people out there that enjoy this. And so that's when I started reaching out and creating this brand, Pretty Convenient, finding individuals that love to multitask in their career, want additional financial streams of income, but need somebody that's going to educate them, teach them, and do sort of like all the legwork to get the appointments for them. And I have been able to create a really amazing team of individuals, and of all females, that they just let me know when they want to work, when they're not doing probably the other 5 things that they're doing in their life. And you tell me when you're available, I'll find the clientele for you. You go out, have fun, do a photo shoot, help somebody get prepped for a really amazing event. And then I'll pay you. I keep a small portion of it. And last year was interesting because it's obviously with the pandemic. I like to call it the pause in all the beauty industries. And during the pause, I have this team and I'm like, I need to do something that's going to continue to allow my team to get paid, because I didn't want to go up against something as large as this and just give up. And I think that's part of the Alaskan in me, that it's like just independent and nobody's going to tell me I can't do this. And so that's when I launched Pretty Set Go virtual subscription boxes. And it's basically the artist meets you in like a virtual type of world like this, and they teach you how to style your hair, do your makeup, learn skincare techniques. And so that was able to pay my team during this last year, and I didn't have to let anybody go. And I'm really proud of that one.
Wow. So Pretty Set Go is a subscription box. And so just tell us how that works. So there are little videos or audios, files?
So it's live. So what happens is that you go on to the website, you order the box that you're interested in, and all the boxes are named after the services that Pretty Convenient offers you. So let's say for your hair, you want to learn how the right products and techniques to create a pretty wavy type of style. So we ship you the box, you purchase the box, you ship it, and then you go use your QR code to schedule a live tutorial one-on-one with one of our artists. And they'll meet you in what we call our telebeauty portal through my app. And then they will actually teach you how to use the products that came in the box, as well as how to use the tools that you have at home to create that wavy look. And then same thing with makeup, because what was happening is I realized we had clients reaching out that were, everything's closed. How do I get my products, and many of our customers were essential workers. So they were still going to work. My husband himself was an essential worker. And then you also had individuals that were going on Zoom calls, and they still wanted to feel and look pretty. And so that's where we were able to kind of bring it all together and create this experience. And the videos are great, but just a live one-on-one that somebody can say to you, you know, you have really great eyebrows. Let's teach you how to enhance them so that way your eyes look more alive when you're on these Zoom calls. And they're tailoring the techniques to you versus just a video on a perfect model with a perfect face with a perfect arch.
The real people.
Exactly.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So you were able to have all of your employees still work. And so it's interesting because everything is their one-on-one kind of labor intensive. It's not just you get this app and you have a one size fits all.
Correct. Yes.
Do you see in the future going to more of a one size fits all, or is that not something that you're interested in?
It's not what I'm interested in. I know that what our point of difference is, and I've heard this multiple times, is that a lot of boxes out there, a lot of mobile companies, they have the videos, they have the quick tutorial lessons. I mean, you can literally go into any cosmetics department in any major store and they'll teach you how to utilize. But what's happening is the salesperson's always trying to quickly get you done and out and buy the product and go. And so with this one-on-one, and what I realized moving from Alaska to Ohio to Minnesota to here and rebuilding is it was the one-to-one conversations with that client in the salon that built my career. And so, and that's, I do honestly believe, I'm a fan of Gary Vee, and I'll share a little bit of something that he said many years ago. Is he said, people that understand how to harness this technology that we have in our hands and the experience of Sam the butcher, who has your chicken breasts all picked out when they see you coming down the street, whoever can harness those two things together are really going to be the people that come out on top at the end of the day when it comes to business. And I feel like that's why I've leaned so heavily into just continuing to have that one-on-one experience.
Beautiful. I love it. I think Starbucks does that really well too, where they, because there's so many coffee shops, right? And so why is Starbucks still successful? It's the customer experience. People know your name, sometimes spell it wrong, but they know your name. And there is an
that's
atmosphere.
great. Yeah. There's that, but they have consistency there. That's the, that was one of the books that I read when I was doing all of my research, is the history and the story of Starbucks. And they were saying that if you can have, like you said, that name and that personalized experience, but still consistency. So as we grow and expand, and that's what I train my team, is that if it's on location, a pretty wavy service in Illinois should feel just like and be just like a pretty wavy experience in Minnesota or Indiana or St. Louis, where I have team, so to speak, on the ground and available for these services. And then what gets customized is the virtual experience in the subscription boxes, because it is truly just one-on-one, and it's not us doing it to you, it's us virtually teaching you hands-on how to create the look on your own.
That's great. So how do you get your customers?
Social media is a huge piece. It's something that it's so visual, and clearly we are so visual. And then word of mouth. I launched an ambassador program as well for individuals that didn't want to necessarily come onto the team as licensed beauty professionals, but they still needed an additional stream. So we do a referral program for beauty professionals, and they receive a large portion of the profits, 40% of the profits of any box that they refer a customer to purchase. So we get a lot of through referrals as well, which again is the same. It's a trusting relationship, that they have respect with their customer. And it's really about just putting additional hands. Because even with salons, as they were coming back from the pandemic, they did not have the funds to purchase the products the consumer needed when they finally came in, 6 months later, for their services. So this allowed them to make additional income, but not have this humongous price buy-in. And then the customers were also able to be taken care of.
That's amazing. You've thought of so many different things. And I'm thinking also just the salon that I go to, the changes that she had to make in her salon and how much it must have cost her to put plexiglass up, to take out chairs, to take out the couch, she actually expanded her space so that she could put in more chairs spaced apart, and there's no waiting area anymore. You have to wait in your car and come in, get your temperature taken. And I'm sure things will change as more people are vaccinated, but it was a big expense and a lot of changes had to happen. I don't think people realize, you go to your salon, you get your hair cut, prices don't go up that much. Like, they can't charge you a huge premium, but they had to undergo losses, and to have this kind of service sounds like it could really save the salons for a lot of people.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it could definitely be helpful. And that's what I'm finding with a lot of professionals out there. And sadly, no, you cannot, as a business, completely 100% pass off those additional expenses to your consumer, because otherwise you will totally go out of business. At the end of the day, you still need to stay somewhat competitive. And so we're truly hoping the loyalty of the customer is, and continuing to come back. Don't give up on your hairdressers and your estheticians and your technicians. Really be there for them as much as you can, and show empathy for what they're going through, because we may have had all the sanitation practices down before, but with all these guidelines of really the social distancing, that really does take a toll, or not being able to work as quickly because you have to add an extra 30 minutes to every appointment, 15 on the beginning and 15 on the end. So definitely, to any of your listeners, don't give up on your hairdressers. They're doing the best they can right now. And as things cycle through, I think some of these things will stay. I hope so. I had 10 years ago pulled the desk out of my salon, the front desk. And because I actually like when somebody comes in, that they're not sitting in a waiting room, that they immediately move to the chair and start the experience. And so what I'm hoping, I took a lot of flack in the beginning about, what are you talking about? You took the front desk out. But that was how I found my numbers grow tremendously, because the customer felt like they were constantly being taken care of. So the experience level went up. So I'm hoping that they keep that in the industry a little bit. But the plexiglasses, I hope that goes away. I think that there's nothing more beautiful than an exchange of conversations within the salon between clients and other clients, and stylists and other clients and stylists. It's really beautiful. It is a community that needs to be a little rebuilt, I think, again, get back to where we were.
I agree with you. I think that COVID has created some opportunities that actually brought us closer and gave us so much more depth in our communication. We realized what was important in life if we are looking at ourselves in a contemplative way. But, when you look at people with empathy who have gone through a loss, I mean, I was lucky. I always use Zoom for my client calls, so nothing really changed. And I created a new course for how to date during the pandemic and sold that 5 different times. And, I think if you're a resilient person and you can be creative, it's great, but not everybody is. And, so we have to tip our people higher, and really it's like just to appreciate what they've gone through. I think
Absolutely.
That's a reminder.
But I agree. I think that this last year, if you have a propensity towards resiliency, that you probably found more individuals in your life coming to you that needed that support. But I will say I'm a very resilient person, and sometimes I can come off a little too shiny to the veneer of, well, that didn't seem to bother you so much. Oh, it did. It's just that because I think it was because I'll relate back to my mother. My mother she was in a position that she just had to do what she had to do. And so by leading by example, I saw that strength. And I did see her break down. I saw her tired. I saw her cry and all of those things. But I know for me, like when things shut down, I was like, okay, I know there's got to be a way to deal with this right now. I'll break down later. And end of August 2020, I hit a wall and I was like, what is going on with me? And I realized I was processing March at a much later time frame. Because people I needed, that's how I survive, is I just barrel through like a little hurricane in a teacup type of mentality. But then I do process and have those breakdown moments. So I don't want it to sound like everything is like rainbows and unicorns and roses and daisies, because it is, but it isn't.
I totally understand and can relate, because I'm the same personality. Like when we first started talking, you're like, yeah, I grew up like this, but it wasn't so bad. And then I went here, and then I had to keep changing, and the business failed, but then I tried another, so it can come across as, it's okay. I just kept reinventing myself, but of course it takes a toll. But there is, I think, in a resilient person, this idea that there is no failure. Like you're going to find a way to make it work. And I remember when I became a coach and I saw so many people not being able to make it in the industry. It is not easy. You've got to learn how to run a business. And that's not what we're taught. We're taught how to be a good coach. And that takes also thousands of hours of practice. But learning how to run your business is a whole different skill set. And so I said, I'm not going to be a statistic. I have to learn best business practices. And let me look at people who are successful and see what they're doing, and how can I get known and get seen and get found. And it is getting out of your comfort zone, learning things that you never thought you would ever have to learn. But there is that moment where you have to just be a human. And I remember my kids used to say to me, Mom, you're like a rock. I never see you break down. You don't cry. You don't, fall apart. And they didn't like it. Like if I would watch a show with them and it was a tearjerker and they'd see me crying, they'd be like, yay, Mom has tears. She's human. But it made me take a step back, because I realized it's not good to always be just powering through. You do have to have emotions, acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge that things aren't always great. But it doesn't mean that you're a victim. I think that's the big difference in people who are resilient. You're going to keep going, but you do have to process. Otherwise it does catch up and you can really break down and not be able to get back up.
Yes. I had a friend of mine that's in the beauty industry, and she's a business coach, but she also, I would say she's a bit of a life coach, because she has always said for years, because she had to check herself in because she had a full breakdown. And because she was just barreling through life and ignoring all the things that happened to her. And so she says, that's great that your cash flow plan looks great, that your expenditures look fine, that you're making money at the end of the day. But if you do not deal with what really you've gone through in life, it will catch up with you. And you could lose everything. But look, now you have a business and you're responsible for, from 2 people to 2,000 people. Deal with all these other things. And she's great. She sends out little reminders to all her friends that she sees like us barreling through. And it's like, okay, when are we processing?
Yeah.
And it's greatly appreciated. I am a crier in the fact that I do, I love people so much. And, I had a client, I remember the very first client I ever, that had cancer. and she had requested that I be the person that shave her hair when she was going through treatment. And even at a young age, I was in my 20s, and I understood the honor of somebody requesting me to do that. And we shut the salon down. I bought a bottle of wine. We sat and drank and cried together and shaved her head and all of those things. I've helped people prep themselves to go bury their child or their family member. I've helped on wedding days. I was the person that did somebody's hair at the hospital because they just had a baby and they wanted to look great for the after pictures. And you really are, beauty professionals are part of every special moment. The graduation from high school, the graduation from college. I mean, all of those things. And so that's one of the things I think that as a hairdresser, and I'd love to see permeate even more so through the industry, is the to honor that relationship, but then also transfer that and honor the relationships that they have with their team and with their employees and with their coworkers, as well as with their family and friends.
Yeah. I hear how important relationships are to you. I mean, it's been a theme that we've talked about over and over, and I think that's really a beautiful thing. Because in the end, I mean, there are a lot of companies that don't really value the relationships they have with people. And that's what it all comes down to. And how are we taking care of ourselves, and how are you taking care of them? And are you tuning in? And my son works for a big corporation, and they were having these touch base calls when the store was closed. And they were trying to help people work through Black Lives Matter and some of the big stuff that was happening, but they didn't have the skills to do it. You know, they would just go, so tell us, and then tell us what's going on for you. And then they go, okay, who's next? It's just like,
they were going down their list of questions that the HR department probably gave them.
Exactly. So the corporation says, ask these questions, check in with people. And so on paper, that looks good, but in practice, you need to get a little support to be able to do these things and have people really feel that they matter, and that they really should speak up, because otherwise, why am I even speaking if you don't really care? So, all right,
Absolutely.
well, let's talk a little bit about the future, and then we're going to move to the lightning round. What's on tap for you for the future?
Well, Pretty Convenient app, we are definitely expanding into new states. So that's huge for that company. And then Pretty Set Go, we're growing month over month, which is exciting. And I'm wanting to really go international with it. So I'd love for us to be in Canada as well as overseas. So exploring those options through there. That's in the professional world. In my personal life, is what I realized as well is that I can kind of work anywhere. And so as the world starts to open up more, I love to travel. And that's really what I would love to do, is to be able to incorporate more travel. Before the pandemic, I had this goal of hitting all 50 states by the time I was 50. So I'll be 52 this fall. And one of the pieces, I still have 2 states left. So I've got to catch those and then jump across the pond and start traveling over there. And my children are older, so I'm on the verge of the empty nester world. So that's on another personal level, is my husband and I just really rekindling the friendship that we have always had. And because now this year we're celebrating our 29th anniversary of marriage.
Wow.
And so we're really best friends. And so I want to get back to spending time just alone with my best friends instead of having these 2 little humans in the way sometimes.
Well, that's great. I love it. And it's a wonderful thing that you are still best friends and that you have something to look forward to. I think that in a good relationship, you can rekindle, what kind of gets lost a little bit in the parenting and all the busyness of life. But for some people, the idea of growing old together is horrendous. It's like, what are we going to do without these distractions, right?
Exactly. It's interesting because we've gone through, if you think about, he's been with me since the beginning of, the leaving Alaska. Like, it was his career that was the impetus that pushed all these different moves. And to be able to say so long afterwards, I feel like everything we've gone through and all the challenges is almost the reason why we're not bored with each other and we're excited about the retirement or the slow down part of things with not having children, because we went through so much and came out on the other end still liking each other.
That's beautiful. All right, lightning round. You ready?
Sure, go for it.
Fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Powerful. I used to feel I wasn't powerful enough.
Interesting. What was the number one thing that held you back from becoming a woman of value?
The story I told myself in my head, that I was the cute little blonde girl that was supposed to be funny and entertaining. And I'm going to credit back to my husband. My husband's the first person who's ever said to me, "You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. Why don't you let the rest of the world know that?"
Ooh.
Might be why I love him so much after all this time. It's a good line.
It's a great line.
Try that at the bar, right?
I think I love him. He's a good husband. So, Tracy, what's the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
Get quiet with yourself. Really take a moment to look inside at the strengths you have, and then survey those people around you that you trust the most to find out what they believe the strengths are in you, and see if they match. If they match, probably have a winner there that you can lean into and really expand how you influence the world.
I like that. Because most of us do not see our strengths. Like, you took your husband to say, "Hey, you're really smart. You're much more than just a pretty face and the funny entertainer," right? So what advice would you give to your younger self?
Start early. Start early. I waited so long to really harness my abilities. I was waiting for permission. Don't wait for permission. Just do it. If anything that this last few years have shown us is that we have a computer in our hand every single day. We have access to more knowledge than we ever had. And we also have access to a larger microphone than we ever had, meaning social media. So don't wait for somebody to tell you to speak up in the room. Just start doing it. Start sharing your ideas, your thoughts, because somebody out there really does need to hear it.
100%. What is something that people often get wrong about you?
Should we go back to the beginning when you and I were chatting before? No, it's with my bio picture, it does make me look like I'm probably from a European country, or I have an accent, or I'm a really hard person. I think that in many cases, the biggest misunderstanding is that I've got it all figured out, that everybody tends to believe I've got it figured out. No, it's just that I'm figuring it out. So I'm internalizing and learning and figuring it all out as I go along. And then when I feel it's time for me to give something away to everybody, that's when I open my mouth and I share it. So I processed it a little bit before I actually kind of, as they say, verbally vomited it all over the world.
And finally, Tracy, how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I want to be considered intelligent, and that I took that intelligence and I gave it away. That, again, back to the beginning, that when I left the room, I made it better than when I walked into the room.
Came full circle.
We did, didn't we?
It was a great conversation. And tell us how we can find you. I know you have a bunch of apps and websites. Yeah. So what's the best place to find everything?
At this point, I always feel like it's one of those pick a card, any card conversations. If you are on IG social, Tracy Ftacek, my first and last name, exactly how it's spelled. Pretty Convenient app, which is available in the Android or the Apple stores, and then prettysetgo.com. Any contact that you click on there, it's going to come through. I'm either going to get it or my team's going to get it and make sure it gets to me. But I would love to hear from anybody how they felt about our interview today. I thank you so much for the time, and anybody's on here that just needs a little extra positivity in their world and their life and encouragement, I'm definitely here.
Oh, well, thank you. This was an inspirational conversation. I really enjoyed getting to know you and learning that you're not this harsh accented European. Even if you were European, it would have been fine. But you have such incredible warmth and kindness and intelligence and resiliency. I mean, the energy that you exude is contagious. And I'm sure that you're touching the lives of so many people.
Thank you so much. That does, I take those words and I appreciate them. And thank you so much for allowing me to share today with you.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.